You ever looked around and nothing had changed, but inside it felt like your whole world had shattered. Your job still existed. Your friends were still there. The world kept spinning, but something had snapped, quietly, invisibly, and no one else seemed to notice. It's like life went on, but your soul didn't. When it happened to me, I didn't call it a spiritual awakening. Back then, it just felt like pain, like confusion, like losing myself in slow motion. And the hardest part, I didn't know who to talk to, because I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. Everyone talks about awakening like it's this beautiful, glowing thing. But what if it doesn't feel like light at all? What if it feels like everything's falling apart? In this video, I'm not here to give you fluffy answers. I'm here to walk with you through the wreckage, because I've been there. And I want to show you why the collapse might actually be the invitation. And if you're in the middle of it right now, I've saved a few things toward the end of this video that helped me survive my own unraveling. They're small, but they might just keep your soul anchored. There comes a moment when life stops making sense, but not in a dramatic way. There are no sirens, no visible disasters. It's more like your everyday life starts to fade. The things that used to move you don't taste the same anymore. Your friends are still your friends, but something about the connection feels hollow. You smile, but you feel like you're acting, and no one around you notices what's quietly falling apart inside. That's when the collapse begins, but it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow unraveling. Your goals start to dissolve, relationships lose their glue, decisions that once felt clear begin to stall. On the surface, it might look like bad luck or just emotional instability, but deep down, it's as if a deeper intelligence is pulling the threads, dismantling the life that was holding together a version of you that no longer matches who you're becoming. When it happened to me, I didn't have the words, just a heavy silence. I tried to explain it to a few friends, but I felt like I was losing my mind. Saying, "I think I'm changing," felt too soft. The truth? I was falling apart in slow motion. And only later did I understand. The collapse wasn't the end. It was the necessary earthquake, the one that breaks the chains tying you to a place you've already outgrown. But the strangest part was still ahead. What if all this chaos, this unraveling, was actually a kind of silent birth? I say this because deep down, some part of you already feels it. Something new wants to be born. But like every birth, pain comes first, and it never tells you when it's arriving. There's a part of the brain called the default mode network. It's responsible for keeping your personal narrative running, who you are, what you like, what you believe in. It holds the structure of your ego together. But during a spiritual awakening, especially the intense kind, that network starts to fall apart. And what you thought was you begins to fragment. You're not going crazy. It's just that your old mental configuration is losing power. That's why so many people report feeling a sense of derealization, identity loss, extreme confusion, like they're caught in some kind of existential glitch. In deep meditation or under psychedelics, something similar happens. But in spontaneous awakenings, you don't choose it. It chooses you. And your nervous system, trained for stability and control, panics. It resists. It tries to make sense of it all, to return to the familiar. But everything has already shifted. When it happened to me, it felt like my brain was trying to reboot, but the system was corrupted. Words would come, but they felt distant. My memory was all over the place. Time felt too fast and too slow at the same time. I couldn't sleep for days. It was like my mind was imploding from the inside out. And only much later did I realize that was my ego, finally breaking down. If you're feeling something like this, know that you're not alone. And one thing that helped me, even in the middle of the chaos, was writing. Not to understand, but to release. Grab a piece of paper and just write whatever comes, unfiltered. Sometimes your brain needs to see what your heart hasn't yet processed. When everything started to fall apart, my first instinct was to fight it. I tried to get back to normal, to hold on to what once made sense. I booked appointments, forced smiles, pretended to have a routine, but every attempt to return hurt more. It felt like wearing clothes that no longer fit, but refusing to take them off. The more I resisted, the more disconnected I felt. And without realizing it, I was fighting the very process that was trying to save me. There's a brutal paradox on this path. The more you try to find yourself through the old mind, the further you drift from who's trying to be born. The old mind craves control, explanation, safety. But awakening demands surrender. And surrender isn't giving up. It's trust, like a snake that must shed its skin, even when it stings. It's a pain that whispers, "You don't belong here anymore." And the real suffering begins when we refuse to listen. I'm not saying you have to accept everything with peace and gratitude. That would be forcing a kind of spirituality that isn't human. But there's a difference between feeling the pain and resisting it. Feeling softens us, prepares us, teaches us. Resisting hardens. It freezes. It tries to control something that's already in motion. I remember one specific day I tried meditating just to calm myself, but every attempt felt like I was drowning. Only when I stopped trying to control the experience and simply breathed into the discomfort did something begin to soften. Sometimes the most practical advice is this: stop trying to get better. Just be there, fully, even if you're shattered. After the collapse comes the silence, and that silence is terrifying. It's not peace. It's the kind of emptiness that echoes inside your chest. You wake up, but you no longer know why. You check your phone, but feel no desire to reply to anyone. The world keeps spinning, but you don't feel like keeping up with it. The truth is, this pause between who you were and who you're not yet can be more dangerous than the collapse itself. It's in this suspended space that many people get lost, because when the ego is dismantled, it leaves a hole. And all humans want is to fill holes. So we run, we distract, we numb. We go back to relationships that once hurt us, buy things we don't need, binge whatever keeps the pain at bay, because the void stings. But what no one teaches us is that the void can also be fertile. You just have to stand there for a while, on raw ground, without rushing. I remember looking at my life and not recognizing anything anymore. Friends, dreams, even my own voice felt distant. It was like living in a house with no furniture. The walls were still up, but there was nowhere to sit. And in that space, the danger is redecorating the same house with the same old furniture, just because silence is uncomfortable. But sometimes, the void is an invitation. If you're at this point, here's one small thing that helped me: leaving my phone outside the bedroom at night. It might sound silly, but it forced me to face the silence, instead of numbing myself with notifications. Sometimes, a small shift in your environment can stop you from running away from yourself. Rebuilding doesn't begin with fireworks. There's no grand revelation or divine voice whispering that everything will be okay. Sometimes it's just a moment. A second when you realize you're not as desperate anymore. The pain is still there, but it no longer owns you. It might be something small, like the urge to go for a walk alone, or the sudden curiosity to read a book that's been collecting dust on the shelf. The new self doesn't shout, it whispers. And it's in those whispers that rebuilding quietly begins. You notice certain obsessive thoughts aren't as loud anymore. That silence no longer feels like the enemy. That being alone, even just for a little while, feels bearable. And at some point, you realize you no longer have to cling to who you used to be, because something else, quieter, more honest, has started to emerge. Not a better version of you, just a truer one. When this started happening to me, it was subtle. I didn't announce my healing. I didn't post about it, but I started writing again, taking care of my body, even without knowing why, having conversations that weren't searching for answers, just presence. And in the middle of what felt like nothing, enough began to grow. One thing that helped me was walking at the same time every day, even without a destination. It was my way of telling my body, you're still here, and that matters. These small rituals, they slowly return your sense of belonging in the world. If I could go back to that darkest moment, I wouldn't try to fix myself. I'd just listen, quietly, without judgment. The mistake most people make, and I made it too, is trying to make sense of everything. Label it, explain it, give it meaning. But awakening doesn't start with answers. It begins with space. So if there's one practical piece of advice I could give right now, it would be this. Feel first, understand later. Not every pain needs to be explained. Some just need to be walked through. The second thing, take care of your body. It sounds simple, almost cliché, but it's radical. During my collapse, I neglected everything: food, sleep, movement. And only later did I realize how much that worsened the disorientation. The body is where the spirit anchors itself. When your mind and soul fall apart, the body might be the last safe place you have. Small things make a difference. Drink more water, walk outside, sleep without your phone next to the bed. It won't heal you, but it will hold you. And sometimes, that's everything. And finally, seek out living mirrors. People who can listen without trying to fix you. Avoid those who give ready-made advice, like your soul is some kind of engineering problem. What you need right now is presence, not solutions. It could be a friend, a therapist, even a stranger who's walked through something similar. Sometimes, just hearing that someone else survived is half the healing. In those voices, you don't just find comfort, you find pathways, and one of them might just lead you back home. And through all of this, hold on to this. There was one thing that kept me whole, even in the darkest days, and that's what I want to share with you now. If your life feels like it's falling apart, maybe it is, but maybe that's not the tragedy. Maybe that's the doorway, because what we call collapse might be the soul's only way to get your attention. And if you're still breathing, still listening, still searching, you're not lost. You're just in between versions of yourself. So here's what I want you to sit with. What if nothing's wrong with you? What if this ache in your chest isn't a sign of failure, but a sign of release? What if the version of you that's crumbling was never truly you? Don't rush to rebuild. Don't race to understand. Let the silence stretch. Let the questions echo. Because sometimes, healing starts when we finally stop searching for answers and begin listening to the space where answers used to be. Now I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments what part of your life feels like it's dissolving and what part of you might be waking up in the process. Your words might help someone else feel less alone. And as you sit in this in-between, as the dust settles and the noise fades, you might find yourself standing in front of a mirror, not with certainty, but with a quiet question. Who am I now?